My name is Jana Jones, and I am the Director of Global Customer Success for Ciena. We're a telecommunications company. And actually, truth be told, I don't really know what people do in telecom. I just do the customer success portion. But my understanding is we make the internet work. So we really just allow for this conversation to be happening anytime you pick up your phone. The underlying technology and networks that are built underneath that is what Ciena does.
That's great. And so how does customer success fit into the company? What is the size and scope of your team? How do you kind of organize within Ciena?
So customer success was brand new to Ciena 2 years ago. Being a hardware company, I think that they're the last to kind of make the transition over to customer success. People have often thought that customer success only has a place in the SaaS world, when really that's just the place that it was needed. You really couldn't move forward unless you had customer success in the SaaS world. And now, in my opinion, if you're a company that doesn't have a customer success org, then you're really not a great business person. So you probably haven't been to like one conference, one event, one anything, because it's very simple. It improves the customer experience and it lowers operational expenses. So
talk us through that journey. How has customer success evolved at Ciena? 2 years ago, zero, let's just call it. How did the practice start? And then how has it grown? Like what types of roles and parts of the customer journey does the organization support?
Yeah, so it's actually a really interesting story at Ciena as far as where customer success started and how it developed. I've actually been a part of an org, including this org, for the two biggest mistakes that folks make when they come into customer success. I often feel like qualitative business areas, people don't give it the same amount of respect and honor as it deserves and the background that it deserves. So often they just put someone in front of, in charge of customer success that doesn't have any background in it. I think anyone who's a practitioner is used to people putting the name because it's glitzy and glammy on things, and then they build something that has nothing to do with customer success. So we actually developed our own tool initially. And when I came on board, I came from a smaller telco. And so when I came on board, I immediately said, this isn't scalable. This isn't going to work. I mean, if I gave you all the money in the world and told you to go build a snowboard or buy a snowboard, why would you go to Home Depot and try to fashion a snowboard yourself if you have no background in snowboards versus just going to doing an RFP between Burton and K2. So that was really the first thing that I came in and said was, you can't have a customer success program without a software. And there's no reason why we should be trying to build this ourselves. I think they probably spent about as much as it would have costed for 2 years developing it initially. And then when I came on board, they started bumping into all the same things that you would bump into: scalability, the function, the development hours, all of that stuff. And so really quickly, it made sense for them to transition over to a tool. We were between the obvious monsters in the room, Gainsight, Churn Zero, and Totango. And Totango snagged the catch, I guess. We've been quite happy with the product. And we've certainly been happy with the engagement in the developments that the product needs to go to the next level. But also the other half of that, as far as customer success went, was changing the way people thought about it. I think one of the most helpful analogies that I've started to have is, a lot of times people think it's this or that, what we did before, or customer success. And I use the smartphone analogy. You're still in CS, you're still communicating with the customer, you still care about the experience, outcomes, education. It's just a question of evolving the strategy behind it. So a Nokia brick phone does the exact same thing that our smartphones do today, right? The underlying purpose of that is to communicate. The question is, how do you develop and think about changing the game and strategizing and giving a better customer experience? Because if you don't do that, you're very quickly not going to have, you're not going to have customers very quickly. Nobody buys the Nokia brick phone anymore. And I think that that's a lot of pressure on the software companies as well, because you've got people biting at your heels or coming out with better products. And if you're not listening to your customers and you're not developing what the customer needs and anticipating what the customer needs, you're very quickly going to find yourself without them.
Wow, I could not agree more. You are touching on all the key themes that are core to our sales kickoff and that are core to our strategic narrative. I love your analogy of the smartphone, because what we talk about is the customer journey is the true product of customer success. And you have to continuously evolve, iterate, and innovate based on feedback, how the market's moving, what the customer needs are. So I think you kind of touched on that, pretty well in your analogy. And I'm curious, knowing the competitive set that you were evaluating when you were making the choice of a CS solution, did that kind of get started and go, the iteration modularity to Totango? Is that what stood out? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm trying to maybe draw some parallels to what you're describing and how we're, the way that we imagine the value being delivered to customers when we grow with you, we shape to your business needs. It's not the big bang install, right?
Yeah. So, to be totally frank, I probably would have been happy with any one of those three, Turn Zero, Gainsight, or Totango. At that stage, I just really needed to get a software in place. I needed people to understand what the purpose of the software was. I think each one of your main competitors, has different strengths, but I think the fact that Totango's even mentioned in the same breath as Gainsight and kind of nips at the heels of Gainsight says a lot about what Totango's done in sort of taking over that market share. Because obviously whenever anybody thinks about industry leaders in customer success, it's Gainsight. I mean, they're still leading as far as the thought leader around that. And so for Totango to really be coming in and playing in that space and winning contracts over Gainsight says a lot about the strides that Totango has made. So it was really just a review of what made the most sense for us. And at the time, Turn Zero was missing some key components that would move them out of the room of any enterprise contract. I don't know where they've ended up from there, but I really think that when you boil it down, just to be in the top three says a lot about the effort and energy that Totango's put into the product.
Yeah, 100%. So let's kind of move this forward then into where we are today in terms of just the general market and the economy. There's so much focus on revenue retention. I think CS, we all talk about it as still a nascent and evolving industry. I love the way that you laid it out so clearly at the beginning, right? CS was originally for SaaS. Now any good business should have it. That makes a lot of sense. What are the conversations like at Ciena in terms of the North Star for customer success? Or are you seeing a heightened importance on critical metrics that you and your team are measuring and driving?
So Ciena is an interesting business case. I would say that we're kind of the crawl, walk, run approach. Our group really, when we came out with it, they have done business the same way for the last forever. So when you come along and you bring a smartphone to people that do have a Nokia brick phone in their hands, they're like, yeah, but I really like playing Snake. And it's very hard to rip it out of their hands. And interestingly enough, working in telecom and working in a technology space, you would think that transition would happen a lot faster or different, but Ciena's been successful, right? They have $3.5 billion of revenue a year. The question I think comes back we're fine. Why would we want to make any transitions? Why should we change? What's the point? We're good the way we are. And I always make a joke, Karen. I spent most of my life trying to change people. Now I spend my time changing organizations. So one is much more successful than the other. And I think that one of the biggest challenges that you have as a leader in customer success is you're the new kid on the block, right? And so you have to figure out how to communicate. You have to figure out how to get those metaphors down so people can really understand the basis of customer success. The North Star of customer success is the portal and community. You cannot produce one-to-many solutions without a portal and community. You cannot produce a great customer experience without a portal and community. And ours has grown from 200 followers to over 6,000 in the last 2 years. So it was something too where people work at Ciena for decades, literal decades. There's people that have been here for over 40 years. And so a lot of concepts that maybe other people in the industry might think are old for folks within an organization like Ciena, it's brand new to them. And so you have to really be relentless. You have to be a bit of a masochist, really, to come in and just repeat the same things, find another way to say it. I have a history in golfing and being a golf coach, and you can say something 10 different ways, 10 different times. And eventually, if you get to that one metaphor, that one explanation that hits someone, then that's where you can make the transition. So when you talk about KPIs and where the next step is and all of that jazz, just getting folks to really understand the basic concept of customer success and understanding that a customer success software is the basis of anywhere that you want to go from there, right? I really think customer success boils down to 4 areas: account retention, account growth, one-to-many solutions, and employee advocacy. And if you don't have the account retention piece, then you really don't have any business working in any of the other areas. And if you don't have a cohesive story and basic organization across your accounts, and you don't have a basic understanding of how you're supposed to do onboarding or an upsell or so on and so forth, then your customer's getting a very different experience across the board. And a lot of times folks are really, really stuck on that one-to-one engagement. They think people want that. And a lot of us don't want to talk to anyone, We just want to quickly find a solution and get back to our day.
Yeah.
So I think overall that's really the focus, is transitioning the way people think, getting them to not think about Totango or customer success software like an administrative task, having them and explaining often the larger strategic play for something like that. For example, we just kicked off our customer success events, and we used the drip campaigns to contact all of our customers in one click. Without the time and effort and energy that people put into organizing those accounts, if they don't keep those accounts up to date, if we don't have correct contacts, then we can't leverage the power that's within the solution. And a lot of times people think on the battlefield, what's this administrative task that I'm doing? And really, you've got to really push people to think bigger than that.
Yeah. I think you're spot on in terms of the status quo is the enemy, so to speak, holding a lot of us back, and how do we change and evolve. So totally can understand you're constantly in that position of driving change, having to educate and communicate internally to bring your cross-functional partners and the leadership on board, particularly in a more established company and industry that might be slow to change. So that will definitely resonate with the team. And good to know you're not only a golfer, but I'm guessing from your analogy, you're probably an avid snowboarder as well.
How'd you put that together, Karen?
That's good. We're
I've
people
been known
too.
to shred the POW.
Yeah. Well, you should. I'm not sure. Where are you based, by the way?
I'm in San Diego and Calgary.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Because I'm in Northern California, and we've had 3 weeks of rain and lots of snow if you're in the Sierras. So
I was just in the Palisades in Mammoth. It was no joke.
Oh,
no
incredible.
Joke.
Yeah, I've been watching the photos, so that's great. Well, let's just transition into, you touched on a topic that comes up a lot with our customers, and we're talking about it internally as well. We have our new Vice President of Customer Success, Chris Dishman, who joined, was a customer at On24 and now is here helping us scale CS. So that's a topic coming up a lot, that as companies grow their customer count, or as their customers increase in complexity, maybe expand to different solutions, you can't always depend on growing your team size. You talked about it, right? Not everyone wants to talk to a person. So unpack what it means to scale CS a little bit. You've talked about one-to-many and community, but how do you think about that importance, given everyone's got this, growth goal, predictable growth, but knowing you can't always add more human resources to support the customers?
This is actually it's a great question, Karen. Because I struggle with one of my leaders. I've had many conversations that you can't just throw more bodies at the problem. There's got to be strategy behind it. You've got to think through what it is exactly that you're trying to achieve. I always use the example. So recently I moved from Scottsdale to San Diego, and I came in, I was moving in with my best friend, and my parents were there, and it got down to the organization portion, and only I knew where everything needed to go. So if you had thrown 5 more people in the room at that stage, the amount of time that it would have taken for me to delegate where everything was supposed to go would have taken longer than for me to just put it all away. And I always use that example when I'm talking about that leader, because he's often overwhelmed with the customer count that he has. And it's more people. That's the answer. The answer is more people. And more people often isn't the answer. You have to take a step back and you have to think about what it is that you're trying to communicate. And so we have a great partnership with our global customer care. Our VP of GCC he's a brilliant man, and I have never had any pushback from him on any of the support that I've needed. I really think the 2 departments that you need on your side the most is technical support, GCC, or whatever it's called, wherever you are, technical support, and then marketing. And last on that one, sales too. And it's more about just getting sales to understand that customer success is here to support you, not here to fight with you, battle with you, be in a competition with you. We're here to accomplish the same things. We're just 2 very different people, 2 very different personas within the organization themselves. And so the number one thing, you have to identify what are the simple questions that people are continuing to ask that's requiring a one-to-one engagement that I can turn into a simple solution. The next piece of that is you have to make it easy for people to find. So one of the first things that when I came on board, when the Ciena community, which still blows my mind to this day, 2 years ago, took in a $3.5 billion company that has 200 followers. And I went into the topics list, and this was something that just wasn't particularly important for whatever reason. There was other focuses for the organization. They didn't know at the time, what kind of punch and pack this could have. There's a lot of development that needed to be put in place. But the very first thing was I went and looked, and it was the messiest topics list I've ever seen. And it wasn't intuitive. It wasn't simple to use. And so even if you had gone in there to go to the topics list, you'd click in, it wouldn't give you any information. At the time, they had created over 10,000 knowledge articles. So they had a massive, and they had great processes in GCC where, hey, if is there a new knowledge article that needs to come out of this case? They were building it, but nobody knew that the knowledge article base even existed. So it's like, that's great that you have, 10,000 trees out in this forest and it's the most beautiful forest in the world. But if nobody knows that it's there, how is that helpful? So I think really thinking about the user journey from start to finish, how do we take the low-hanging fruit and give simple answers to our customers so that we can really leave our engineers and our technical department with the challenging work that they really want to do. And in many ways, I think that supports, keeping your engineers, because engineers don't want to answer simple questions. They want to dig into the tough stuff. And so changing the way that your CS group engages with the customers so that they can think about the information that's coming back to them, how they can utilize those customers. I mean, even what's happening right now, right? I'm giving my free time to talk about how great Totango is. This is customer success, right? So somebody on the other side identified that I was pleased enough with the product that I was willing to come and give my time to speak. You've got to be able to think about how can we produce the one-to-many solutions, get the really easy low-hanging fruit off, make it a really easy user journey. We've all been there, right, Karen? I mean, you go in, you're using it, I can't figure it out, this is pissing me off. And then the next thing you know, you abandon it. And now you're calling and you're talking to someone and you're not happy that you're talking to someone. You would have preferred that your solution, you figured it out, right? Yep. So I don't think it's that complex, but we do need to sometimes go back to the basics in many ways. And go back to the user journey, get fresh eyes on it. And I feel like that happens a lot in business. The consultancies, the people who come in, it's so complex and robust, and we use these big business words, when really at the end of the day, all we really want is an easy user journey. So I think taking a step back, going back to the simple things that work, getting those easy things off the plate so that, technical support can dig into the tough stuff, and then really making sure, my hashtag is teamwork makes the dream work. You really can't do anything. Customer success is the glue of the organization. We force a lot of different portions of the organization to speak to each other. And I think that when you break down those silos organizationally, then you get really great results.
Yeah, I love that. We talk a lot about customer success. Everyone in the organization, the entire company is in the business of customer success, but you said CS is the glue. We talk about CS being in the prime position to rally all those functions together. So that's great to hear. Thinking about who's going to be in the room for this event, you talked about, CS is here to support you sales. We have our entire sales and customer success organization, multiple roles across those two teams. Tell me a little bit about what you've done at Ciena to ensure that tighter post-sale collaboration, or even how you've thought about when and where does CS enter into that buyer and customer journey?
Well, the answer is for everyone across sales to have a Totango Zoe account, Karen.
Great upsell opportunity, everyone.
Whether or not you can talk an entire sales org into understanding the post-sales communication and dropping the check for that is a totally different conversation. So I really think that you have to have systems that are talking to each other. And once again, I'll bring it back to ease of use. That goes back to internally as well. We do have the capability right now where all of our touch points go into Salesforce, but it's not easy to use, and the visual isn't that simple. So I think that ultimately the answer is for the entire organization, if it makes sense to have Totango, so there's a cohesive conversation across the board. But you do bump into the fact that most sales orgs have invested in their own software. And if they've invested in their own software, then you have to try to figure out how to get those two systems to talk. And it is challenging because both organizations think they have the right solution. And customer success software and a sales software are slightly different, but in many ways similar. So that's my solution, but I still haven't talked everybody into it yet.
All right, that's good to know. Well, we've got a couple minutes left. I want to end on this idea of innovation because we're talking about continuous iteration and innovating on the customer journey. Tell me, for you, your team, or just Ciena in general, what are some big, exciting, innovative projects and initiatives you have planned for the year ahead?
Whew. 2023 is our most exciting year because we have all of the underlying structure for people to move into an advanced customer success motion. So funny enough, I literally debuted it today. I gamified those 4 different areas: retention, account growth, one-to-many solutions, and employee advocacy. And we put off, in our scenario, we put all of our folks and we asked them to move into a customer success motion without the tools being in place. I often say we asked them to be a cyclist team and then didn't give them any wheels. So there's not really anywhere for you to go. And if you're brand new to cycling, and now you know my next sport, Karen,
yeah,
you're brand new to cycling, then it's like hard to kind of understand what wheels would look like when, the cycling coach comes in and says, this is what they look like, and here's where you're going to put them on and all the rest. So the really exciting thing for us is all of the time and effort and energy that went into getting our strategic tools in place, Totango and Calendly being the other. Getting those strategic tools in place, building the awareness around the behaviors, having the CSAs that really transition from a support role directly into CSA, watching those folks move into advanced motions and grabbing the rest of everybody. Because in many cases, it's just strategic thinking, right? I have scenarios where I have CSAs, we call them CSAs, same as a CSM. I have customer success managers that are really busy. They're bogged down with their customers. They've got 20, 30, 40, however many. But you can always supply an idea, right? if again, it goes back to teamwork makes the dream work, right? It's like if you change the way people are thinking about it, then you can change the way people are producing solutions. And so we're just asking folks to make that final transition. And so we gamified all of that behavior, and you'll be pleased to know that you can't get points in any one of my columns unless you have points in Totango for the month.
Oh, I love that. Well, since you just rolled this out today, we're going to have to check in with you and see how that leaderboard's developing. But Jana, I can't thank you enough for your time. This was an awesome conversation. I'm going to close out with a really hot question that I need to know the answer to. Road cycling or mountain biking?
Both, but I like road cycling better.
Okay, well, I'm a mountain biker, so if you ever make it up to Northern California or vice versa, maybe we can go for a ride. But thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
All right, thanks, Karen.